Hello, and welcome back to Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 4, A Farewell to Farms, where today I am joined by multiple industrial-grade dehumidifiers in the other room that I thought would be gone today, but they're not. There will be no further elaboration. No, I mentioned in a recent stream we had some moisture damage, and they're still trying to dehumidify all the wood after removing the walls. On the plus side, it's fantastic for the 3D printer, which is in the room with all the dehumidifiers. I don't know how much it's coming up on stream. I imagine you can kind of hear it in the background, but there's literally nothing I can do except not do the stream. And there we go, start recording, so now the people who hear a re-upload of this, if there ever is one, won't know why there's a very loud hum possibly in the background. But yes, today, those are not the hotkeys. Today, there we go, A Farewell to Farms. I have to say, I always appreciate a sort of non-standard episode. In television, they have a tendency to end up being the best ones. In fact, I'm not sure. I'd have to think through, like, Star Trek, all the Star Trek series. And if there is a non-standard episode, I'm pretty sure it's just the best one. Yeah, I can't think of a counter to that off the top of my head, but I'm not going to sit here for 10 minutes. That being said, I don't think this is my favorite episode, Lower Decks, although we have had a few non-standard episodes. I think it was pretty good. I think in Lower Deck styles, it is truly an episode where there's not a whole lot to say beyond my general opinions of it, with the A-plot. One thing I always love is a non-standard intro. I get why it's often not done, but I think this one was really good and set the tone. I like the remix of the theme. I thought it was all very good. I will say, though, I did have the problem of really wanting to know who the hell this Klingon was. We've seen him before, right? I finished the episode. I can Google it now. I'm pretty sure it's the one who talked to Mariner at the end of Season 3. Trek Farewell to Farms. The one that kind of got her to get over her... it's been a while since I've seen Season 3. A Farewell to Farms. Everything says I am error. Brilliant. Look, Memory Alpha's going to tell me who it is. Species Klingon. He is from Wej-Duj, however you say it. I was wondering about that one. Wait, and he's also the Klingon from the Inner Fight. That's the episode I was thinking of. I did not realize that was the same Klingon. Or maybe it's painfully obvious, and I've forgotten it. But that is one of the downsides when, there's like years apart between the episodes. But yeah, as I said, it was broadly pretty good. I like alien stories. I like non-traditional stories, as we've said. They're generally pretty good. My only real complaint about the Klingon storyline in particular was that, as Lower Decks tends to do being a comedy, I think it lent a little bit too much into, like, the Klingons are honorable warriors and this is literally all we do, despite taking place, like, partially on a farm. But it wasn't, like, so overbearing that it totally got rid of everything. I mean, the Klingons are a heavily honor-based culture, and this is a Klingon who is obsessed with that idea of, like, the captaincy and the warrior and the honor. So it makes sense it would come up. But it also, I think the main problem is it started walking into the territories of even the characters in the show just being racist. Like, Mariner questioning if Klingons have water. Which, yes, of course they do. Oh, great, YouTube is complaining about the stream, but I haven't dropped any frames, so that's YouTube's problem, that's not mine. But like I said, it was kind of like every now and then, constantly throughout the episode. But as I said, it wasn't too much it didn't ruin the whole plot line for me. I did really like the ending, though, of just that final scene with the battle where, God, I wish I remember their names. But, when he killed the Klingon, this whole scene, which, come to think of it, I don't know how much of this scene I could put on YouTube. Let's go with that frame. I did really like that. That was just a very well-animated, just really cool scene. And yeah, I like the other two Klingons on the council. I think they were a very good take on, like, the older respected Klingons who, yeah, they're, like, honorable, but not in the stereotypical way, more of how, like, you'd expect a older, retired, semi-retired, like, general person to be. Come to think of it, essentially the, like, TNG Klingon stuff, but the Empire isn't horrifically corrupt, which, makes sense for this being Lower Decks and all. As for the, I'm going to call it the B plot with Miglimoo, I don't know if I have a positive thing to say about it, honestly. Even down to the fact that these people live on the planet Cloaca, however they choose to mispronounce that. If the Klingon plot line veered into, like, one-note stereotypes for the Klingons, which is really bad in an episode set in Kronos, this episode just took Miglimoo's race and made it entirely one note to a comical extent, to the detriment of the story. I think you could actually do this. Actually, I will say, I do have positive stuff to say about it. I've always liked the concept of a species who went into space and explored the universe for culinary reasons, is like a primary drive. Of course, you're not really going to have a species, like, solely dedicated to one thing. Like, that's the reason they went into space. But I thought it's an underutilized concept, even just in general, that, like, you have all these societies with alien foods and all that stuff, and then you can mix them and you can do crazy things, especially in the Star Trek world, where it just seems kind of accepted that, every species can eat anything from any planet and we don't have to worry about disease and stuff like that. Thank you, precursors. But yeah, so it was nice seeing that. It's just, I don't think a comedy is a good place to handle any species. I was going to say except the Pakleds, but even the Pakleds in The Next Generation, they're not idiots. They're just a species with a, like, extremely underdeveloped language. In the same way that the Temerians, speak in their analogies and stuff. The Pakleds just have an extremely simple language. And so it's even theorized in the TNG episode by Data, like, right when we meet them. It's like, I don't think they're idiots, Captain. They just have a simple language. And so they speak in something that we would hear as, like, an idiot. And then, of course, Lower Decks took that and ran with, no, actually, they're just idiots. Which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I do like a lot of the Pakled stuff they did with it, so, But yeah, I just also think the story of it was... like, as soon as Tendi came out with, like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't actually look right. It just kind of built to the obvious conclusion that they can't taste. I assumed they didn't know that. Like, they mentioned some sort of stellar phenomenon in the last planet they visited. I'm like, maybe for some, like, alien space reason they lost their taste. But, yeah, I will say, though, I finished this, like, 4 minutes before going live. I had a thought getting ready. Is this a criticism against, like, Star Trek critics? Because literally the moral at the end of the story, after some psychobabble that almost certainly isn't true, but whatever. I don't care about that one too much. Like, the critiquing of the thing you loved is what caused you to stop loving the thing you loved. which is definitely a storyline you can do, like a sort of meta critique on the fans. Recently, we watched Doctor Who's Love and Monsters over on the Doctor Who stream, and that's an episode both Caden and I like. But you do have to handle that with a bit of care, because otherwise you're basically going up to, like if done badly, you go up to your fans who, love the show. I mean, people watching the show like the show, or this is their first ever episode. Those are like the two possibilities. So basically everyone in your audience likes your show. So you're basically going up to that audience, and if done badly, you're telling them, hey, like, any sort of engagement with the show makes you an idiot, like these bird people who are, like, stereotypical awful critic people, just stereotypically no redeeming qualities. However, the fact that this race appears to travel in massive pirate boats that fly through the air is a 10 out of 10. That is a redeeming quality. And so you need it with some care and some time. Like Doctor Who's Love and Monsters, if you've never seen it, is basically about a Doctor Who fan club within the universe of Doctor Who. And they show these group of people coming together because they're interested in the Doctor. Like just normal humans. They're trying to find him. They all kind of know about him. And then they have a bunch of time. They do like cooking for each other. They play Guitar Hero. It's the great sense of community of people coming together around something they like and just having a good time. And then like halfway through the episode, the villain comes in and he basically takes over the group and like forces them to try and find the Doctor. Is essentially a job. And it's all very just unhappy, like corporate dead office vibes. And so Love and Monsters is like, hey, it's good that this all can bring us together, but it's essentially a don't let it get out of control kind of message. And actually singling out the people who are a very small portion of the audience, but the people who will just hate like everything because it's not the thing they watched 5 years ago. A topic I could go so much into that I generally disagree with. But as I said, some people are like that, just a very small minority. Being the B plot that, as far as I can tell, essentially just exists to fill like 7 minutes, however long it is. It doesn't have the time to say that. And so it kind of comes in is just like, you have like any single bad thing to say about the episode, well, that makes you like these crummy bird people. Look, even their security officers are disgusted. Like, you're as bad as the people who eat poop. Which, of course, was not their intent. I don't think it was their intent. But it's even more kind of frustrating, because, especially for an episode like this, I think you should have just let the Klingon arc lead. Like, the B-plot wasn't that long. If we just look at this timestamp as I scroll across, most of it is the Klingon. Like, sure, there's the bird stuff in some of it. But think back to that Peanut Hamper episode. Is it a mathematically perfect redemption or something? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that entire episode was just the one plot of Peanut Hamper on this planet. And it really helped add to the atmosphere of being away from Starfleet and really sucking you into this non-traditional type of story. And it's true that we have Mariner and Boimler in this Klingon story, so it's not entirely, like, separate. But I think you just could have spent more time, especially on the trials, just letting the Klingon thing breathe more, and I feel like you probably could have cut out the B-plot entirely, and it's a B-plot that really needs the time. So yeah, I really didn't like the B-plot. I just kind of wanted to get back to the Klingon stuff. I will say, though, I recognize you need Boimler and Mariner, especially because we are setting up some overarching theme for this season in this episode. Like, Mariner and Starfleet has to get involved. But I do kind of wish we could have gotten an episode that stayed with the Klingons a little bit more. I think it would have captured that real special feeling you get Like, when I think of some of the really interesting episodes in episodic television, like Star Trek and Doctor Who, as I mentioned, that peanut hamper one. Recently, Doctor Who's had 73 Yards. It had Midnight. It has Heaven Sent. All three of which are episodes that, like, only have one of the main characters. And I feel like even in older Star Trek, I really like Voyager's. I think it's wink of an eye when they're in orbit around that planet where time moves really fast, and we basically watch the entire evolution of this species that just sees Voyager as like a stationary speck of light in the sky. Because I think that one does a good sense of just putting us in like a totally different setting. And I've always really liked that feel of being like in a totally different setting. Wejduj, however you say it, Wejduj, what sounds the most Klingon, is another great example where we're just on totally unrelated starships for the vast majority of it. But as I said, this wasn't bad. There's just not a whole lot specific to say about the Klingon part of the story. I did like, though, I didn't even really realize till the end, till Mariner kind of pointed out, we're getting the kind of overarching storyline of these cracks. You know, it's nice to kind of have the realization that the dimensional rift from the first episode, Dos Cerritos, actually is kind of part of some bigger mystery of these cracks opening up. I will say once again, you know, we haven't seen what the storyline is, but so far, with the very, very minimal information we know, it does seem weirdly similar to Prodigy Season 2, which, to be fair, would have gotten pushed back because of the cancellation. It probably would have been before Discovery, just at a guess. However, it's another example of a shocking number of examples where two shows that have seasons that air back-to-back have eerily similar plots, which is basically the only, like, objective criticism I've really been able to see thrown at Alex Kurtzman as a showrunner. Not showrunner. God, what's he called? You know, the head of Star Trek, whatever his position is. Maybe it is the showrunner. But I feel like with his position, you're in charge of Star Trek and all these, like, separate series, is, you know, you broadly let them do their own thing, but your job is to make them feel like they're part of the same world. You know, there is connective tissue here. They're not contradicting each other just because the different writers don't know what's going on in a different show, but also that they're not stepping on each other's toes. That, you know, if someone does like a season in the Mirror universe, another show isn't also working on a season in the Mirror universe. And I actually would hazard a guess that most consecutive Star Trek seasons, most pairs, have basically the same plot under Kurtzman. Compared to Rick Berman, who, you know, awful individual. I wouldn't want him back. But people complain, the big one I like to do is, why did Voyager not do its year in hell? You know, that was such a cool concept. It would have been a cool season. And it probably would have. But it was pointed out to me a while ago that it was probably a wise decision, even if at the time, you know, after all these series are done, it might seem like a wasted opportunity, because at the same time, Deep Space Nine was their show doing the really dark, really gritty, and wartime stuff. I don't remember if they were in the war yet or not. And so Berman felt it was important to have Voyager be the, like, almost entirely episodic, basically no connective tissue, and a lot more lighthearted, closer to TNG. And I was like, you know what? You were absolutely right. Because at the time, you probably would have liked, you know, the both. You don't want Star Trek to be all miserable all the time. I mean, that's basically what we had before Lower Decks came out with Discovery and Picard, you know? And even now, I think it's easier to swallow the darker bits of Picard and Discovery when you have Lower Decks and Strange New Worlds. They're much more light and happy. Generally, of course, Stranger Worlds can veer into darker stuff, but it's episodic, so next week it'll be totally different. But yeah, I think I'm gonna start the scene by scene now. I don't think I have too much specific to talk about, which is fine. I'm always a little surprised how long I can make these lower deck things go. I think this Klingon woman was the worst offender in terms of, like, stereotypical Klingon vibes. Come to think of it, you don't even need her. I guess she serves the purpose of showing that the captain guy, can't, like, he's missing out from not being a captain. He feels like he can't live the life he wants. But we already have that. If you wanted to show him being, like, ostracized from Klingon society, well, for one, you wouldn't have this girl still be into him. You'd actually have her fully reject him. But you could also just have, like, the bar guy do it or something without being a weird, sexist, super horny girl. That's also just like, I'm Klingon, therefore I love rank and honor kind of weird thing. I don't know. She just felt weird. Going on a little further. You know what? I will say, actually, I had the thought, we had Tindy reference when Miglimu fought the Big Orion. I don't think this episode really had many references outside things that have happened in this series that, make sense to come up. Unless you count really basic things, some like they said Patak or Chadich, I wouldn't count that. That's just so much, that's what culture are. Yeah, to me, that's like saying that Tindy is green, and that's a reference. I don't think that's how that works, But I just wanted to bring it up because it's another step of Lower Decks seeming to move away from the comedy angle a bit more. Was there really comedy in the Klingon arc? You had Boimler, I guess, who's suddenly and randomly obsessed with Klingons, which feels a little weird. He's more interested in the bureaucracy of honor, which makes more sense. But he's also kind of weirdly into the violent aspect, which, I don't know, that always seems weird to me. It's a minor critique. I won't spend too long on it. But I did laugh because I realized these targets are Andorians. I'm not aware of beef between Andorians and Klingons. In fact, that is a little weird. No, it's fine. The Andorians are a little more warrior-like as well, aren't they? Yeah, I'm probably going to be wrapping up soon, though, because I think I've really said all I want. Quick scan, though. I am curious, if anyone knows in the comments, even if it's like you're watching this playback, not live, would kind of standing on top of each other actually reduce the voltage? And then follow-up question, if it would it actually do it enough, given like 30,000 volts? I can never remember. Is it the volts or the amps that kill you? I don't remember. But that struck me as one of the things that, like, if you know the science and that's wrong, that's gonna really ruin the episode for you, isn't it? But yeah, I don't know. It might be correct, as I said before. And yeah, as I said, the trials I felt went a little fast, but the final battle, we'll call it, at the end was really good. There was the bit that confused me, right? So Boimler mentioned the rite of forced conscription kind of at the beginning of the episode. That's the first time this whole trial, no, the last time this trial had been done, which surprisingly was not an Enterprise reference. 300 years ago, as I said. But, so they, like, didn't explain it at all, which is really weird, because it's conscription, which is to, like, bring someone into your army. So did this main Klingon, who is not a captain, conscript, essentially, the admiral into his own army? Because that doesn't seem right. Did he conscript him into his, like, group of 4 people? I guess they did say at the start it was at least 4 people, so, like, hypothetically, you could have brought an army, like, literally, to do your challenges. Although I suppose at that point you wouldn't need to become a captain if you have an army. You could just be a captain. But, yeah, it felt a little too convenient and unexplained. Like, they literally just needed a line that, for the purposes of their trial, whatever this group is counts as, like, the captaincy. Like, cite some technical loophole. That's all they needed. But the fact that they didn't, it just felt all weird. It's like, the thing that solved this episode was a totally unexplained rite of conscription, where it's not even made clear what you were being conscripted into. Which doesn't sound... That's not great. But yeah, again, that was a little more of a negative note to end on. Why does that frame look bad? I don't know, something about those limeys. It looks like they're in front of a green screen or something. But that threw me off guard completely. Yeah, as I said, I think that some of this review sounded a little more negative than my overall feelings are. Although I think there was plenty of positivity in there. It's just, as I said, there's not a whole lot specific behind just a general... It was a decent vibe watching the episode. It was a decent story. But as I've said plenty of times before, when something is good or decent, unless it's, like, exceptionally so, there's not a whole lot to talk about beyond I liked it. And if something is bad, even, like, a little bit, or something falters it a little bit, you can really go in for a while on exactly what happened and elaborate. So reviews can often tend towards the negative side. But I did like it. I think it's a good addition to the franchise. And yeah, I think at that, I will wrap it up. I will say thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time!